All right. Well, thank you so much. You guys can hear me all right? Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. This club does more than just give you information. It shows you what you can do with the information. This is a quick recap of what happened at last month. I spoke on Thursday last month. The very next night I was on Kent Hovind's podcast. And one guy commented, this Brian Lauer guy, it seems like that one teacher that was cool, but also taught you stuff. I like this guy. So that was pretty an encouraging thing. They did not put it up on their website because they're on YouTube probation, and they didn't want to risk getting another strike. But you can see it on my website. And I've got Solidify Your Faith. Oh yeah, and then Saturday, I got this call that said that Dr. Cazelli was going to speak at a church in Ham Lake 3 times on Sunday, and then at Northwestern on Tuesday night at our Creation Club. And I got a call on Saturday that said he had car trouble in Wisconsin. So I thought they were going to ask me to go pick him up so he could speak on Sunday. But they said, no, would you go speak for him on Sunday? And so I did. You know, some people love to hunt, some people love to fish. Man, I love to share the creation message. And so on Sunday school, I pounded theistic evolution into the ground. On Sunday service, I gave them the hydroplate. It's a theory that makes accurate predictions and also answers many scientific mysteries. And then in the afternoon, there was a vacation Bible school that wanted a creation table. And so I went down to Arden Hills and I put one up for them. Then I came back and spoke that night and told them about what Dr. Carl Werner had found. He released it in March. He claims that there was 150 frauds in evolution. And if you're interested in that, that's Creation Science 104, I believe. You can check into that. And then on Monday, Stephen Policastro, he sent me a message saying that, hey, he's in town. And he's from the International Association for Creation. He said, I'm in town. And he teaches people how to give creation tours at secular journals. And so he says, do you got a tour lined up? And I said, no. And he says, well, I'm here. And I said, okay, well, let's put you to work. And so in less than 24 hours, we got 40 people to Como Zoo, and he gave us a tour. And it was so much fun. We're going to do it again this month. This is going to be just August 20th, 1 p.m., meet at the front doors, and if you're late, meet at the giraffes at 1:30. And we'll go look at these animals and see if they're best explained by creation or by blind chance. This is the Place of Hope barbecue. This is at Riverside. And they asked me to have a table, so I did. Wherever the door opens, I like to spread the creation message. And the next one is going to be at Wilson. It's going to be August 28th. It's a Wednesday night. And you get if you like free hot dogs, free burgers, free brats, and you like to hear people how they overcame drugs with Teen Challenge, that's a great place to be. And I'd like to thank the Andersons. I think it's Raleigh Anderson who's a big hitter in that one. And then last week, I almost lost my voice at the fair. And I love going to the fair because I get to talk to people that are outside my bubble. You know, I only know my circle of influence. I like to see what's happening outside of the people I know. And some of the comments that I got at the fair was, there's lots of fights at Tech. And there's one girl who gets beat up by Smalley girls every day. And the kids can't read. And also that no child left behind means they just get passed right through the education system, whether or not they can understand it or not. And then I talked to a daycare lady, and she says they're regulating us out of business. She's got a daycare on the farm, and she has to put up a fence even though they play all over the farm, you know. And also they have to have so much padding underneath the swing set. And then what gets me, they had to write down everything they said to a student or to a child. It just, I don't understand that at all. And then Princeton. Let's see, Princeton, there's some parents there that their student, I think they were in 6th grade, they came home and said that if the school would make it, if they wanted to get their genitalia cut off, the school could arrange it and not tell their parents. And the parent pulled them out of school that day. It's like, you're not putting this stuff into my kid. And then, and then there was also some Royce White thing that was kind of shenanigans. And also, the other part of the fair that I like is going to the Marines and the Armies. Army has a chin-up bar this year, too. It used to be just the Marines. And I'll go there, and I'm wearing the Army shirt right now. They gave me the shirt because I did 20 chin-ups. And so I thank them. You know, I used to thank them for serving, but you can serve a tyrant, okay? And so I thank them for defending our Constitution against enemies foreign and domestic, because that's the oath they take. And I say, do they teach you what's in the Constitution? And he says, no. And I said, well, I hate to put you on the spot, but could you tell me, if somebody asked you what's in the First Amendment, could you tell them? And he got 3 out of 5. That's actually better than most people. Most people, it's not even that much. And so then what I do is I go home and I print out some First Amendments business cards and I laminate them and then I give it to him. So he knows what our freedoms are. And I'd love for him to put up a big banner at their recruiting thing. It's like, these are the freedoms we're protecting for you. You know, and I asked him, well, how can you defend what you can't define? And he said, oh, that's a good point. And I think that we should start asking service people, police people, I don't know, firemen do it, elected officials, whoever takes the oath, and ask them what's in the First Amendment. Can anybody here do it? I ask it all over the place. Okay. Well, for those at home keeping score, we have the freedom of religion, speech, press, peaceably assemble, and petition the government. And the Second Amendment's there just in case the First Amendment's violated. The theme of my booth was, will St. Cloud ISD 742 remove the errors in the textbooks? And that's a good question. And had some questions of the day. Should textbooks be accurate? Yes was resounding. Should St. Cloud ISD 742 remove false information from our textbooks? Yes, won by a landslide. And do you like paying for errors in our textbooks? And that ended up as no being really big. And so let's dive into it right now. Should false information and belief systems be taught in science class? Who thinks that false information should be in our books? Who thinks nobody? Who thinks that belief systems should be in our books in science? Nobody. All right. Okay, well, we need to define science. There's Dr. Glenn Collins. He was at Ohio State in a room full of physicists, and he asks, what's the difference between science and science fiction? And nobody could answer it. Yeah, and so we need to define the term science. In their 742 curriculum, it defines it. It says the National Academy of Sciences defines science as the use of evidence to construct testable explanations and predictions of natural phenomena. Okay, so science is testable. It's the use of the scientific method. There's a question, you know, why is this happening? Then you try and figure out the hypotheses, and you test it, and you get results in the conclusion. And the hypothesis is, it's a clear statement of what do you expect the answer of the question to be. And so then, what is evolution? This textbook says all life on Earth is related to a common ancestor that existed about 3.8 billion years ago. Okay? This process is called evolution. So we're not talking about big dogs, little dogs. We're talking about molecules to man. The single living cell that turned into all the plants and animals and people that have ever lived. That's what we're talking about evolution. And according to their textbooks, I really like this slide. We do not know exactly how or when the first forms of life developed. So they don't know. And nobody knows. There's $10 million on the table if you can solve the largest mystery in history, how genetic code inside cells got there, how cells intentionally self-organize, communicate, then purposely adapt. $10 million. So if anybody tells you that they know how life began from non-life, they haven't, because that $10 million is still on the table. Okay, and the question is, where did all the information come from? You know, you got matter and energy. Information's not that. So where does that come from? And again, this one, no one knows how the first cell came about. Oh, that other one for the 10 million, that's evo2.org. evo2.org. And this one is herx.com/evolution 2.0. And this is a college textbook. You may have seen this before. They're trying to explain how life came from non-life. Somehow, despite this harsh environment, living organisms appeared about 3.8 billion years ago. Somehow is not science. All right? Somehow should not be in a science book. That's a belief system. And this is a video in our school district. Every representative form of every known phyla on Earth evolved in the ocean. Can you test that? Can we see that happening? No, we can't. So that's not science, according to the National Academy of Sciences. And then we'll dive into this water section. It says, if you trace the history of water back billions of years, can you do that? No. No, you can't. So that's not science right there. It is likely, again, that's another fuzzy word, that water provided the liquid environment for life to begin. So they're saying that life begins in water. And so again, that's not testable, not scientific. And this video, Why is Water Essential to Life on Earth, says, you probably figured out that water equals life. It's like, say, what? Water equals life? Well, how do they define life? Well, this one says, Chemical Origins of Life video says, a minimal definition of life is that the system has to be able to replicate itself. Can water replicate itself? Does that grow? Does that reproduce? That's not life, no. And then this one, it goes on to say, this is the working definition that NASA, the civilian space agency has adopted in their research and search for life and their understanding of life. And so the so-called NASA working definition is as follows. Life is a self-sustained chemical system that is capable of undergoing Darwinian evolution. Okay, talk about begging the question there. Darwinian evolution. And so can water have that capability for replicate and Darwinian evolution? No. So that's false statement number one for those keeping score. And then it goes on to say that, Pamela Conrad says, moreover, because water remains liquid at the conditions of the surface of the earth, you can move around in all different kinds of directions. That's called degrees of freedom. So things can move around, flip around, vibrate, stretch, rotate, and then they're able to try novel combinations and hook up in new ways. And the narrator says, this surely helped life get started on early Earth. The chemicals, the raw ingredients that make up life were constantly sloshing around, bumping into each other and combining into new chemistry. Over millions of years, that process can lead to living organisms. Okay, so they're saying that life started in the water. And here's another video, Chemical Origins of Life. It says there are a number of theories to attempt to explain the origin of life on Earth. The one with perhaps the most scientific support is sometimes called the prebiotic soup theory. So this is the best one that they have, the origin of life. And it says these components can then be dissolved in the oceans of the early Earth, and in the oceans they get transported all over the place. They end up interacting with each other, forming more and more complex molecules that start to have this ability to replicate. So they're saying unequivocally that life started in water. You just bounce them around, slosh together for billions of years, and you get life. Well, that's not what Jonathan Sarfati says. And he's got a PhD in physical chemistry, and he's a chess master. He can play 12 games of chess blindfolded and win. He's brilliant. Yeah, just brilliant. And so what does he have to say about the origin of life in water?
We're taught that chemical evolution started in the oceans, but you say that's the last place you'd expect to look. Why?
Well, okay, to build up a big molecule called a polymer from many little molecules called monomers, for instance, proteins from amino acids and DNA or RNA from the nucleotide building blocks, every step of the way, every combination spits out a water molecule. They call that condensation. But if you already have water molecules dissolving these things, then the water would come back and actually break that bond apart. It's called hydrolysis. So if you try to do this in water, it's the hydrolysis, the breaking apart that would happen and not the forming. In fact, chemists who want to make proteins or DNA or RNA, they exclude water as much as they can. They even have water absorbing chemicals to draw out the water. So a primordial ocean is the last place I'd expect to find these polymers forming.
Yeah, and so you can see that. You can see more of his minute clips. So you can go onto YouTube, Creation Ministries International, and watch that. And some people might think, oh, he's a creationist. He must be off his rocker. I don't want to listen to what he says. But what did he say that was false? Okay, maybe you're biased against creationists. How about NASA? Are you biased against them? They say you got to have Darwinian evolution for life. They're definitely not creationists. And I love this. NASA admits water is a problem for the origin of life. And this, you can hear this video, rsr.org/NASA-water. See, Bob Enyart, he sent this question in to the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and it's an international stage in Germany, and this NASA scientist squirms. She doesn't answer it the first time, so the moderator has to bring it back to her, and listen to what she says.
This is for Dr. Wojtek, for Mary. It is from Bob, an independent science reporter, and the question is, rather than an asset, isn't water the enemy of prebiotic molecules? It's the universal solvent. And outside of a living organism, water dissolves life's building blocks like amino acids, sugars like RNA and DNA, various kinds of carbohydrates and other polymers. Shouldn't this chemical challenge be more openly acknowledged in astrobiology? I guess this assumes it's not acknowledged, but what do you say?
I think it's acknowledged.
Not in our textbook, it's not.
I'm not exactly, I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have, is understanding the evolution from simple compounds that can be made abiotically towards more organized and more highly functional biomolecules that are important for life. So I guess I don't understand.
And so water is a challenge. how these molecules survive exposure
Oh,
to
because
water.
of water? Sorry,
Yes.
I guess I didn't get
Well, I think the question is, it posits that water is a challenge for prebiotic evolution, that because it attacks the various molecules involved.
So, in some of the prebiotic, thanks, this is something that people think about. Hydration and dehydration reactions are really important in prebiotic chemistry. And so, postulating that life could evolve when there is no opportunity for an environmental separation to allow dehydration reactions actually is a problem, and people do address that.
Not in the textbooks.
And whether it's, you need a continent, which some people, life couldn't evolve until we had land, so we could get away from the water, or there's other ways to separate it. There can be phase separation with ice and water. There can be a variety of other ways that you can get dehydration reactions. And so I think that is very important and recognized.
No.
So, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so she says it's recognized. Well, it's certainly not recognized in our textbooks. They said that, and this was their best theory. Their best theory was the prebiotic soup with the ocean of water creating life. And so according to this NASA scientist and Dr. Sarfati, over millions of years that process can lead to living organisms. That's false statement number 2. Okay, and we go into the history of life into this video, Evidence for Evolution. It says there's only a 1.6% difference between us and a chimpanzee genetically. 1.6%. This has been wrong for decades. And Ray Comfort, he tried to get an airline ticket. I think it was for an orangutan. He wants to get an airline ticket for an orangutan. Yeah, he says it's my distant relative. And the airline ticket won't do it. They know there's more than just 1.6% difference. But it's not just me saying this. This is from PubMed, which is from the NIH, the National Library of Medicine. They say divergence between samples of chimpanzees and human DNA sequence is 5%, not 1.6%. And keep in mind the difference of just 0.1%. A tenth of a percentage point is 3 million base pairs. So the difference between 1.6 and 5% is over 100 million base pairs. And they go on to say that the conclusion is the old saw that we share 98.5% of our DNA sequence with chimpanzees is probably in error. And that's from the NIH. And Nature, which is by no means a creationist organization, says in the fickle Y chromosome, this is dated 2010, so 15 years ago, they were saying that the common chimp and human Y chromosomes are horrendously different. Horrendously different seems a lot more than 1.6%. And if you go into Answers Journal, Answers Research Journal, and you can see this for free online, Dr. Jeffrey Tompkins, he's got a PhD in genetics from Clemson University. He writes that only 69% of the chimpanzee chromosome was similar. Not 98.4, no, it was similar to the human, and only 43% of the Y chromosome. Yeah, that's horrendously different, I guess. Genome-wide, only 70% of the chimpanzee DNA was similar to humans. So we're 30% different. Okay, according to all those things, so this statement that we're 1.6% different from chimpanzees, that's false statement number 3. Okay, and we just keep going on. And I could not believe when I saw this in the video. These drawings here. So notice on the right, it doesn't matter if you're a bird or a rabbit or a human, y'all look pretty much the same. It's going through as you're beginning. But if you compare that to Haeckel's drawings, that's Haeckel that's got the chicken, the bunny, and the human, those images from the textbook look pretty similar to Haeckel's drawings. And what they're not telling you is Haeckel forged them. Those are fraudulent drawings. He wanted evidence for evolution, and he didn't find any, so then he forged them. And they're not telling that to the students. And it's not just me saying this. This is the New Scientist. How fudged embryo illustrations led to drawn-out lies. And the New Scientist isn't a creationist organization. It's embarrassing but true. Some of the most influential drawings in the history of biology are wrong, exaggerated to fit a thesis. Not only do they exaggerate drawings, they'll actually cut up a fossil and put it back the way they want it. And we'll get to that later. And then this is embryonic fraud lives on. It says they still appear in reference books such as Graves' Anatomy. And this was in 1997. Well, guess what, folks? They're still in our textbooks, 742 textbooks, and a copyright 2024. I was at the fair and somebody said, well, they should update the textbooks. You can't get it any newer than 2024 textbooks. And there was another person that walked by and said, is this a Republican thing? And it's like, you mean trying to get accurate information as Republican? Does that mean having deceptive information as Democrat? And so, yeah, it's fun at the fair. But it goes on to say that although Haeckel confessed to drawing from memory and was convicted of fraud by the University of Jena, the drawings persist. That's the real mystery. Yeah, why is it still in the textbooks? And this is Dr. Jonathan Wells. He's got a PhD in molecular and cell biology from UCal Berkeley, which is not a Bible college. And this is what he says.
If you go back earlier in development, the different classes of vertebrates look even more different.
According to Wells, Haeckel, and many modern textbooks, mislead students not just because of faked drawings, but because they leave out the earliest stages of embryonic development. What students are shown as the first stage of embryonic development is actually the mid-stage.
And very few textbooks show those earliest stages, and yet that's the whole point. It's the earliest stages that are supposed to be the most similar, and they're not.
And they're not. Okay, so that's still in our textbooks. I cannot believe it. And I tried to get the rest of this video, and you can check it out on Discovery Institute YouTube channel, and just search Haeckel's bogus drawings and watch the whole thing, because Eugenie Scott, she's there. She's from the National Center for Science Education. She says, yeah, those drawings are unreliable, but they're used because they don't have a copyright, so they're cheap, and they project the image the idea that they want to project. Well, it's like, well, if you have to use false images to project an idea, maybe your idea is not accurate. And so these drawings are not accurate. Number 4. Okay, the evolution of the eye. Here we go. 400 million years of evolution has been conspiring against you. Did you realize that? You've been conspired against by evolution? You know, that's a logical fallacy. Anybody know what it's called? It's called reification. That's where you have something that's abstract, giving them personal attributes. Okay, people can conspire, evolution can't. Okay, so that's just one strike against the video. So why are our eyes an engineering nightmare? And that's got an assumption built into the question. It should be, are our eyes an engineering nightmare? They're assuming that it is, and it's not. But it goes on, but here lies the problem. Our retinas are backwards, because the light has to go through all these cells before they get to the photoreceptors. And it says scientists haven't been able to come up with a working hypothesis as to why our retinas are set up backwards. This means that nature, because then they refer to an octopus eye, this means that nature invented the camera-like eye twice. Anybody see what's wrong with that sentence? Nature invented? No, it's the same one, reification. Nature can't invent. People can invent, but not nature. And it goes on, during the evolution of the cephalopod eye, the retina was never flipped inwards, which is the logical way to have it. Yeah, if you live in the water, and water filters out the harmful UV lights. And so, yeah, that's the logical way. But you put that thing up on the land, and it's probably going to go blind, would be my guess. And it says there aren't any scientifically proven positives. We'll come back to that statement. They obviously didn't read this Smithsonian article that was in 2015. It says light has to pass through the nerve cells to get to the rods and cones, but that order is no mistake. Okay, the glial cells did indeed create columns of concentrated light. And Medical Express says why human eyes are wired backwards. And this is why. Okay, the glial cells can guide light just like fiber optic cables. Are you kidding me? That's a tremendous design. Green and red light are concentrated 5 to 10 times more by the glial cells. And the light was not scattered evenly, but concentrated into a few spots. And the light was concentrated in these columns up to 10 times compared to the average intensity. And this optimization is such that color vision during the day is enhanced, while nighttime vision suffers very little. So it's an amazing design. It's not an engineering nightmare. For her to say that scientists haven't been able to come up with a working hypothesis, well, that's false statement number 5. You know, this was like shooting fish in a barrel when I was going through. I could probably do another talk. I had to stop because I was running out of time. And they aren't scientifically proven positives. That's the same idea, so we'll just call it number 5 again, but that's a false statement. And Charles Darwin himself said, to suppose that the eye could have been formed by natural selection seems, I confess, absurd to the highest degree. But don't hold that against the theory, basically is what he says. And then we looked at hominid fossils. Scientists have tracked the lineage of human evolution all the way back to lemur-like creatures. Remember the National Academy of Sciences? You know, it's got to be testable. Can we test lemurs turning into humans? No, it's not science. That's a belief system. And then Dr. Carl Werner, he's got a book up there on the cover. He exposed 150 frauds in human evolution, and he picked apart, this is the icon where monkeys turning into man. They're either monkeys or they're men. And it's not just him saying it, it's a bunch of evolutionists saying it. And there's 200 different species that have been, of ape men, that have been mistaken. They're not ape men. And he lists them all off, just did incredible research. And he says that faced with the fact that more than 200 species of ape men have been disproved may cause some to reasonably doubt the theory of human evolution. Yeah, I'm part of that some. I doubt human evolution, all right? It may also cause some to question the capability of scientists to objectively evaluate any fossil they believe to be an ape man. Yeah, I question their ability to do that also. And if you're interested in that, CS 104, Creation Science 104, we dive in deep on that one. Okay, and then this is talking about Lucy. This is what Louis and Mary Leakey, and they don't mention Lucy's name, but I'm pretty sure that that's what they're talking about. But it says it's an almost complete skeleton. This textbook from Cold Spring says this is referring to Lucy, a remarkably complete skeleton. And this is our St. Cloud State textbook, which says nearly complete. Okay, so just imagine an almost complete, remarkably complete, nearly complete. You know, we got 200 some bones in our body. I would say, nearly complete might be like 180. What do they got? Maybe 40? That's not nearly complete. That's not remarkably complete. That's not even almost complete. That's mostly missing, okay? And so this statement here that it's almost complete is false statement number 6. And then you look at Lucy's hip. Okay, that's the chimp hip on the left and a human hip on the right, and right in the middle, it looks pretty close to a chimp hip, wouldn't you agree? Okay, and I was at a kiosk at St. Cloud State, and the anthropology department was next to me, and they said, and I said, they cut Lucy's hip. It was a chimp hip, and they cut it and twisted it to make it a human hip. And they said, no, they didn't. And I said, sure they did. I got it right on my computer. Do you want to see it? And they said, no, I don't want to see it. Don't confuse me with the facts. I got my mind made up, basically, is what they're saying. And was it Dr. Dart? He told Dr. Brain that never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And so what's the story here is Lucy was an ape man. So what did they do to Lucy's hip?
The perfect fit was an illusion that made Lucy's hip bone seem to flare out like a chimp's. But all was not lost. Lovejoy decided he could restore the pelvis to its natural shape. He didn't want to tamper with the original, so he made a copy in plaster. He cut the damaged pieces out and put them back together the way they were before Lucy died. It was a tricky job, but after taking the kink out of the pelvis, it all fit together perfectly, like a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. As a result, the angle of the hip looks nothing like a chimp's, but a lot like ours.
Yeah, well, I hope so, if you cut it apart and put it back together the way they want. But did they show that video to the kids? No, but they manipulated the evidence and they didn't show the kids that. I wonder why. And that's a NOVA documentary. That's their video, not ours. Or I should say it's not a creationist video. And they have these Laetoli footprints, and they show them the skulls right there, and they don't mention the significance of the one on the left, because the trackway became Johansson's strongest piece of evidence for Lucy to walk upright on 2 feet. And keep in mind, they found Lucy 1,000 miles away from here. And they said that there wasn't any human fossils by there, so they had to find, it had to be Lucy. And so what Dr. Carl Werner did, he's over there at Laetoli, and he's interviewing the scientists, and he's taking pictures of the fossils, and then Laetoli fossil 18 came out, and it was a human skull. And he was under the impression that there weren't any humans ever there. It appears not only false, but also purposely misleading. The human skull above right was discovered in Laetoli. So those footprints were made by humans, more than likely, not by Lucy. And then you got this human evolution. See that? We're on the left, and you follow the evolutionary tree all the way back to that single living cell. And again, then they have this tree of life. We've all seen that. And it's got, notice, we're the humans right there at that arrow. But you go back, follow those lines a bit, and we split off from something that became a starfish, which split off from something that became insects, which split off and became something that became mushrooms as we're going back in time, and all the way back to bacteria. So we all come from bacteria. All the plants and animals and people that have ever lived. And remember the national science thing? Is this testable? No, it's not testable. But what does Stephen Gould say? He's the guy who came up with punctuated equilibrium. He says the extreme rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record persist as the trade secret of paleontology. The evolutionary trees that adorn our textbooks have data only at the tips and nodes of their branches. The rest is inference, however reasonable, not the evidence of fossils. And this guy says, this is Mark Pagel, he says, but instead of finding the slow, smooth, and progressive changes Lyell and Darwin had expected, new species appearing seemingly out of nowhere and then remaining unchanged for millions of years, patterns hauntingly reminiscent of creation. So if the evidence points to creation, why can't kids look at creation? All they get is a blind chance perspective of the past. And if that's all they ever see, they just memorize. They don't think. They need to see another theory for them to think, and I would submit the creation theory makes the most sense. But you've got this image that is not scientific, it's not testable, it's not science, and it's inaccurate. It's just imagination, so that's inaccurate, number 7. Okay, and it says humpback whale is actually more closely related to hippos. Millions of years of mutations and change have given rise to both species from a common ancestor. So millions of years of mutations. So mutations are copying errors, okay? Copying errors. That's like if I had a book up here, and this was the instruction manual to make a skateboard, and I'll give you all the grant money and all the time in the world, but all you can do is just randomly cut pieces out, misspell words, change letters into numbers, numbers into letters, rip a page out here, throw it away, rip it, move it. Would that process turn that skateboard into a space shuttle? No, it's just going to be garbage. And yet that's the process that they said turned a bacteria into a person. And I think that takes a lot of faith. And then it says evolution is a unifying theme in biology by most scientists. Well, yeah, they better go along with it or they're going to get fired. There's a bunch of volumes on the tables there. There's 3 of them that Dr. Jerry Bergman wrote, Slaughter of the Dissidents, Silencing the Darwin Skeptic, and Censoring the Darwin Skeptics. Yeah, if you kick the sacred cow of evolution, yeah, you could be the high priests of education aren't going to like that. And you may not have a job for long, and it's documented pretty well in Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed. And then this video says that all species evolved from other forms of life. Again, that's a belief system. That's not science. And then species adapt to their environment due to natural selection. Yeah, that might have a little bit to do with it, but it's mainly epigenetics. ICR is doing great work with this. Dr. Galuza, Continuous Environmental Tracking, he's saying that there's sensors in the animal that senses the environment and switches these genes on and off, and they can adapt. So epigenetics is modification of gene expression rather than altering the genetic code itself. So it's not mutations, it's something designed into them. And in a cave, there's creatures that live in a cave, and if you're in a cave where it's pitch dark, you don't need eyes, you don't need pigment. That's a waste of energy. And yet you got 120 species of fish and salamanders and crustaceans and insects. They got all the same adaptation. No eyes, no pigment. And how did that happen? And you go into ICR, and they talk about this stuff. Whoa. Yeah, here it is. And it talks about going from a sighted fish to a blind fish. And they use words like regulated, rapid, repeatable, reversible, targeted, predictable changes. Yeah, that's in the creation literature, but guess what? It's in the secular evolution literature too. And they can't explain it, not at all. I heard Dr. Galuza speak in Harris last year, and he quoted this journal, and he said these fish can go from sighted fish to a blind fish in 1 generation. 1 generation. This Nature magazine says that blind cavefish can see the light. And it says that by mating blind fish from distant underwater caves, researchers have bred offspring that can see. Well, I'm thinking, did they do that experiment in a cave or in the lab where the fish needed light? I would say try that experiment in the cave and see what happens. Because there's something in the embryo that senses the environment and clicks on and off these genes. And then this National Geographic one says, it's a miracle. Blind cavefish, despite having adapted to their lightless environment for more than 1 million years, again, that's not testable, can produce sighted offspring in just a single generation. So this isn't random mutations. This isn't natural selection. And it's got evolutionists so bothered, they started another website called thethirdwayoфevolution.com. Other mechanisms are essential for a comprehensive understanding of evolutionary processes. Alternative ideas of the evolutionary process are wanted. Hey, I got an idea. How about creation? Let's throw that one out there and see how it hits it out of the park. And so this, where it says species adapt to their environment due to natural selection, I say that's very misleading. It's mainly due to continuous environmental tracking. And you might get this question. Explain the relationship between humans and mice. What do you think if somebody put, mice produce mice, humans produce humans? That's the way they were created. Do you think they'll get any credit on that exam? No, this is what they're looking for. They're distantly related. And how do we know? By genetic testing, fossils of common ancestors, and comparative anatomy. Okay, let's look at genetic testing. Now, bats and whales have identical genes specifying echolocation. Okay, identical genes. Yeah, and so they had a common ancestor, the bat and the whale? I don't think so. I don't think so. And they'll say that's due to a common ancestor? No. I would say it's a common designer. He had the same toolbox and he wanted echolocation, so he just put one in a bat, put one in a whale, same gene. But they get around that by coming up with this word salad of convergent evolution, explains similarities between unrelated organisms. You know the miracle it is to develop echolocation and to have it happen twice? How much more of a miracle that is? And this is comparative anatomy. That's where you look at these, the four limbs of different vertebrae show that similar structures derived from common ancestor. That could also point to a common designer. But again, that's not testable. That's a belief system. Should that be in our textbooks? And the bones of the whale flippers and the human hand show a similar structure and have evolved according to their specific functions. Or they were created that way. People need to compare and contrast. And again, that's not testable. That's a belief system. That's not science, according to the National Academy of Sciences. Okay, and then what is homology? This concept of homology is the idea that evolution uses the same parts or same building blocks to build different structures. Evolution uses parts and builds things? No. Again, that's the logical fallacy, reification. But if you switched it and said, the creator uses the same parts or the same building blocks to build different structures, no, it's not a logical fallacy. The creator can do that, okay, but evolution cannot. So watch out for those logical fallacies. In the skeletal morphology in there, the bones are used, it's the same bones. Well, I would say it's because we got the same designer, not the same ancestor. And this guy says, so this is Kurt, a rainbow boa from Brazil. Kurt has no limbs, but if we look very closely at the rear end of the snake, we can find the spur, this little white piece right here. That's what's left of the pelvis or the hip bone of the snake from its lizard ancestors. Okay, so this is just a leftover. It's just vestigial. It's not used for anything. It's just from leftover when the lizard, when it used to have legs. And that's a belief system. That's not testable, repeatable, falsifiable. But yet, creation evolution headlines, they go through and they document what these spurs are used for. And this is, again, Jerry Bergman. He's the one who wrote all those volumes. He's got 1,000 articles and books out there printed. And so he does a great research. And he said those spurs are useful when climbing trees, their natural habitat, or when hanging from tree branches. And they're also used in courtship and mating. And evidence that the claws of these snakes function for courtship include the fact that the spurs protrude only at the breeding season. So there are purposes for that. It's not a leftover from evolution. Just like they always used to say the appendix was leftover from evolution. No, it's not. It's got some very important things to do. Okay, now let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about how do fossils form. According to our 742 textbook, for a rock fossil to form, the body of the dead animal or plant must undergo fast, complete burial, slowing the decay process. So it has to get buried rapidly and deeply so the worms don't get it. Okay, so that means any layer of rock that has fossils in it was laid down rapidly. And that's our whole geologic column. That geologic column cannot be millions of years old because it has fossils in it. Okay, and we can even do an experiment. That dead deer on the side of the road, is that turning into a fossil? No, it's got to get buried rapidly. Okay, and so that geologic column is evidence for a flood, a worldwide flood in the days of Noah. And if you want to see evidence for the flood, I think it's CS 106. We got that series on YouTube. Okay, and then we're going to jump into the development of the Earth. Okay, the universe sprang into existence. How about that? It just sprang into existence. Well, that's a lot of imagination, but that's clearly not science, according to the National Academy of Sciences. The clouds of gas and dust from the Big Bang, gravity pulled this cooling matter into piles, clumping it together into dense knots. As the pressure increased, so did the temperature in these knots, and the first stars were born. Okay, what is that? That's not testable either, and that violates Boyle's law. Boyle's law says that as the volume decreases, the pressure increases. And Dr. Gary Parker, when he was in grad school, he was learning about this nebula theory, and he asked the professor, how can that happen? Because air pressure is 60 to 100,000 times more powerful than gravity. And the professor said, yeah, well, maybe we should call it the nebulous theory. See, they can't explain it. And then also here, the hot swirling disk, the Earth and the other planets in our solar system condensed from the matter orbiting the Sun 4.6 billion years ago. Again, is that science? Is that testable? No, it's not. But they don't tell them this. This is from, let's see, Nature. How this process continues from, and the theory goes, gas turns to dust, turns to pebbles, turns to boulders, turns to planetesimals, which are like Rhode Island-sized rocks, and then those turn into planets. Okay, how this process continues from meter-sized boulders to kilometer-scale planetesimals is a major unsolved problem. Boulders are expected to stick together poorly. Yeah, they break apart. They don't stick together. And this is from Nature again. Objects must have grown very rapidly from sub-meter-sized pebbles into 100-kilometer-sized bodies, possibly in a single leap. See, that's what they have to go. They need miracles for them to put these things together, and they don't have a miracle maker. And then it says the Earth's oldest rock was discovered in 2008 along the Hudson Bay in northern Quebec. Okay, does anybody know where we found the Earth's oldest rock in 2019? Yeah, it was, according to NASA, it was found on the moon. Earth's oldest rock found on the moon, NASA says. And not only that, the rock crystallized about 20 kilometers beneath Earth's surface. And I read another article where it was in a water-rich environment. How does a rock in water-rich environment get shot 12 miles deep onto the moon? Well, and also there's sea plankton up there. How does sea plankton get up there? They found it on the outer surface of the International Space Station. Well, those are good questions for scientists. And the hydroplate theory answers all of them. If you're not familiar with the hydroplate theory, it's on my YouTube channel, Solidify Your Faith, and there's a playlist, and it's all hydroplate. It answers so many unanswered questions in science, but it's being censored not only by evolutionists, but also by creationists, which really bothers me. So I'll go in there and check that out. And also, Twin Cities Creation Science Association, the next speaker on August 20th is going to be Kevin Lee. And he stood face-to-face with a NASA scientist, and Kevin predicted, you know, when you find out what's in that Stardust, from that comet, the Stardust mission, you're going to find stuff from the Earth. And Dr. Brownlee, the NASA scientist, basically says, no, we're going to find stuff from the Oort cloud. And he was shocked to find stuff from the Earth. And then he's going to update us on the DART mission, where they wanted to redirect an asteroid. And he emailed that same guy and he said, if you try it, and it'll work if it's a solid rock, but if it's a bunch of boulders, it's going to fail. And guess what, folks? It failed because it's a bunch of boulders. Now we got 38 boulders coming at us, and again, it's going to be zoomed, so you can get the link at tccsa.tc. So that, again, accurate predictions is a sign of a good theory, and the hydroplate theory is making a lot of accurate predictions. So the oldest rock was discovered in 2008 along Hudson Bay? No, that's false statement number 9. Okay, and then it says, early Earth had no atmosphere. The current composition, primarily nitrogen and oxygen with various trace gases, evolved over billions of years. Again, is that science? Is that testable? Okay, so according to the National Academy of Sciences, that's not science. What's it doing in a science book? It's a belief system, a blind chance belief system of the past, and we shouldn't be teaching blind chance anything. Okay, and then that chapter is just so full of fuzzy words. Many scientists think, many scientists propose. Again, that's imagination, that's not science. Many scientists propose the impact of a huge Mars-sized body collided with primitive Earth about 4 billion years ago, forming the moon. And there's problems with that theory too. There's other ones. This is the 4th one, then. This just means the other ones don't work. Okay, and again, that's not science. We can't test it. What's it doing in a science book? And then it says that the Earth was in a molten state. Let's go to igneous rocks. Granite is an igneous rock. Okay, what's igneous rock? And this is the grade school textbook. I looked at them too. The granite you studied cooled below Earth's surface. So igneous rocks form from molten material. And they form when molten material cools and hardens. And they're going out of their way to say that about granite. But Dr. Walt Brown, he did in the beginning, this is the 9th edition. And you can get this online at rsr.org/HPT. You can download it for free. And you can go to page 28 and you can read this for yourself. Had Earth ever been molten, its dense, non-radioactive chemical elements, such as gold, would have sunk to Earth's core. Gold is 70% denser than lead, and yet it's found on the surface. And then it says, if melted granite slowly cooled, see, granite's made of mica, hornblende, feldspar, and quartz. They all have different specific densities. So if it melted and slowed coolly, the first mineral to solidify would sink to the bottom of the melt if it were denser than the melt, or it would float on top of the melt if it were less dense than the melt. A layer cake of minerals would form instead of granite, which is a granular mixture of minerals. Therefore, the entire Earth was never molten. That blows that blind chance theory out of the water. Boom. But there's corroborating evidence. This is Robert Gentry. He found these polonium halos in granite, and their half-life is 3 minutes. 3 minutes and they're gone. You know, like the half-life of C-14 is 5,730 years, so it's all gone in an hour, or all gone in, 50,000 years. You know, this stuff those polonium halos should have been gone in an hour. And he said it's like dropping Alka-Seltzer into water and then finding those bubbles in ice. It just flash froze. And that's what he says, it's find like that. And he challenges them. He says, if I'm wrong, make some granite that has some of those halos in it. And this professor from Penn State says, I support his 20-year-old challenge, yet unmet, to the scientific establishment that it produced in the laboratory even a fist-sized piece of granite and the subsequent production of a polonium halo in it. And when they found out that his research was undermining evolution and the Big Bang, they cut his funding. It's a phenomenal, interesting book. Granite is igneous rock? Well, according to Walt Brown and Gentry, prove it. Before you say it's an igneous rock, prove it. Show us. Show us how it comes from melt. They can't do it. And then Earth's oceans formed. Water condensed out of the atmosphere fell as rain and flooded the rifted area. Well, where did this water come from? More water flooded the regions, and the ocean basins grew as they filled with water. Again, is that testable? Well, according to the National Academy of Sciences, that's not science then. If you can't test it, it's not science. And then evidence for plate tectonics. We'll have to do a whole talk on this. There's a book out there somewhere on that table, 20 Reasons to Question Plate Tectonics. Christian Smoot, he mapped the ocean when he was in the Navy. He says it can't work. But he doesn't talk to the professors because they're too set in the ways. He talks to the students because they're more open-minded. And this teacher note says, convection currents, which are an important part of the theory of how seafloor spreading works. Okay, it's kind of like when water boils. It heats up and it goes to the top, cools off, and it's got that circle thing. But Walt Brown says rocks that melt under the extreme pressure more than 220 miles below the Earth's surface will contract, not expand. And it says the magma below this depth of about 220 miles is too dense to rise, so magma cannot circulate inside the mantle, contrary to what has been taught for 50 years. He says it can't happen. It's called the crossover depth, but nobody talks about it. I tried to Google it. You couldn't find anything on it. Okay, and so that is, according to Walt Brown, is false. Okay, and then understanding the universe. One of the biggest mysteries of the universe is how the entire universe inflated at an extremely high rate from a point smaller than a single atom to the size of a baseball. The mystery continues to plague scientists, but the laws of physics do allow for such an event. And I read that, and it's like, what law of physics allows for matter to come from nothing? That's what, that question, Spike Pizarro, his whole life was changed when somebody asked him, how do you believe in the Big Bang and the laws of physics at the same time? Because the first law says you can't get matter from nothing. But they do a whole lot of mental gymnastics, and they say energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So where did it come from? It says matter can be changed into energy, like an atomic bomb, or energy can be changed into matter, like in those particle accelerators. But scientists use these two laws to explain how the energy from the expansion of a singularity can form the matter in the universe. Again, but where did that energy come from? And it goes on. It helps me understand it now after this paragraph. Some have found contradictions between the law of conservation of energy and the Big Bang theory. Yeah, I'm part of that some. Yeah, there's contradictions there. But it says the Big Bang theory only refers to the time after the singularity began to expand. Oh, so it doesn't explain where the matter came from. It's only after. And that's exactly what they do with evolution. Evolution doesn't cover how life began. It's only after life began. So those huge showstoppers, they just eliminate them from their theory. But it doesn't matter. I don't care when your theory starts. If you believe in blind chance, you still have to get matter from nothing and life from non-life. And here's 4 miracles that the blind chance perspective has of the past. If you believe in blind chance, you have to believe in the miracle of getting something from nothing, getting life from non-life, getting order from chaos, and getting the immaterial from physical matter. That was the trouble in Einstein's gulf. He says, how can matter get ideas? He said that's a bridge you can't break, you can't cross that. Okay, and so then scientists think, there again, that's another fuzzy word, that's not science, that hydrogen, and then it cooled and cooled further and made helium, and then it came and made lithium. So when you believe the blind chance perspective, if you want to make it as simple as possible, you believe that hydrogen and helium and a little bit of lithium turn into people. And I don't know about you, but I don't have that much faith. But here's the evidence for the Big Bang. Cosmic background radiation, the measurable expansion of the universe, the relative abundance of different elements of the universe, and the known laws of physics. Okay, that could just as easily point to a creator. No problem. Again, it's not testable, so it's not science. And this says the expansion of the universe provides strong evidence for the Big Bang. It also provides strong evidence for the Bible. Because in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and then several times in the Bible it says that God stretched out the heavens. Yeah, so it provides evidence for the Bible. Do they put that in there? Sensory evidence of the nature and origin of the universe is available. Redshift of the galaxies, everything's expanding. And now they're going to get into a real big problem. It's called dark matter and dark energy. They have to add this to the Big Bang to keep it from falling apart. And it talks about some sort of invisible matter. You know, it has to be there, otherwise these stars would not continue following their orbits. And I think they're talking about spiral galaxies. Because if spiral galaxies were millions of years old, they'd be all wound up. There wouldn't be any spiral anymore. Okay, so they throw dark matter into that. But if the universe is not millions of years old, if it's just thousands of years old, yeah, it's no problem to have a spiral galaxy. They just haven't wound up yet. But they won't allow that. So they have to have dark matter, they have to imagine dark matter. And they say that's 23% of the universe is dark matter. And then the expansion of the universe was actually accelerating unknown cosmic force that is counteracting gravity. So gravity doesn't work, and it's actually making things go faster. That's called dark energy, and that's 73% of the universe. So you add that with the dark energy, and it says scientists theorize that dark energy and dark matter together account for 96% of the known mass energy of the universe. So if your theory that's supposed to explain everything can't explain 96% of everything, I think it's time to get a new theory. And so let's start winding this down. Should the textbooks be accurate? Who thinks they should be accurate? Okay, yeah, that looks good. Who thinks they should be inaccurate? Anybody? Okay, so yes wins that. And that's what I'm trying to do. Help people realize that there's errors in the textbook. Because people in charge don't want things to change because they got the power. Scientific revolution, this is Walt Brown again. Widespread belief systems seldom change when frequently reinforced by influential institutions such as the universities, media, religious institutions, and the scientific and intellectual elite. That's right. Remember the geocentric universe? That was taught for a long time. Spontaneous generation, that was taught for a long time because those in charge. But then, enough people figured it out, and it's not accurate. Okay, but when a vast number of people realize that they've been misled, the intellectual revolution begins. That's my goal. I'm trying to get a vast number of people to realize our education system, which is based on blind chance and random collisions of atoms, is misleading us. It's not making accurate predictions, and they have to imagine all these things to prop it up. So I think it's going to be fascinating. Okay, should false information and belief systems be taught in science class? No, I don't think so. So it's going to be fascinating to see what Independent School District 742 says. What's St. Cloud going to do? You know, and I emailed them 4 of these things, and they're clearly false, and I didn't hear a response. So I called up and left a message for Hillary, and it's like, did I get your email wrong? Or did you get these messages? She goes, oh no, we got the messages and we're working on it. And I didn't hear anything. So on Monday I emailed her and I said, you know, what steps have you taken to rectify this unfortunate situation? Do you need any more information? Can I help? And I didn't hear a response. Or maybe she did. I don't remember. Yeah, I think she did. She responded, they're working on it. And I invited her and her colleague to come tonight. I don't know if they're here or not. But it's going to be interesting because what they should do if they want to educate kids is contact the publisher and say this video is wrong. You know, this one here, it says you probably have figured out that water equals life. Well, that's false. Take that video down. And then this one, over millions of years, that process can lead to living organisms. Well, that's false, according to NASA scientists and Jonathan Sarfati. So take that video down. See, the kids don't even have textbooks in the middle school and high school anymore. It's all online. So it'd be real simple for that publisher to just delete. And this one, the one that perhaps the most scientific support is sometimes called the prebiotic soup, but that can't work. They don't replicate, so take that one down. And then we're not 1.6% different from chimpanzees, according to the NIH and Nature, and a PhD from Clemson, so take that one down. And these are inaccurate images that are based on fraudulent drawings that were proved wrong over 100 years ago. So take that video down. And yeah, scientists haven't been able to come up with a working hypothesis for our eye. Take that video down. And then also on the, Lucy does not have an almost complete skeleton, so correct that sentence. And then this image, it doesn't have any evidence for it at all. I'd take that out of there also. And then talking about how a species adapt to their environment due to natural selection. No, it's due to continuous environmental tracking. That's what the breaking science is, so take that video down. And then the Earth's oldest rock was not discovered in the Hudson Bay, it was discovered on the moon, so correct that sentence. And then this convection thing about how they eliminate the crossover depth, so that, wait until it's proven before you put that in there. And then also that granite is igneous rock. Well, prove it first before you put it in the textbooks. And then keep the belief systems out of there. Should St. Cloud School District remove false information from their websites? And it was overwhelmingly yes. And so what we need to do is get educated. And do you like paying for errors in our textbook? Overwhelmingly no. There are textbooks, they should be accurate, and I've got an email list, and if you want to be on it, if you want to know how the school is going to respond, I can let you know, okay, because it's going to be fascinating. Either they're going to say, hey, we don't want false information here, we've contacted the publisher and they're going to take it down, and what's the publisher going to do? I'd be very embarrassed and I'd take it down just like that. But if they do a word salad and try and justify it, then we can say, hey, the school district knows there's false information in the books and they aren't doing anything about it, so now we can blast them on social media, we can contact our legislators, and we can say, I don't want to pay for false information. You get them books accurate, and then we should pay for them. You know, the taxpayers have a lot of clout here, but we need to get a little more focused, a little more organized, and if you want to be on this team, you know, put your email up here. And then I also did a survey, and they're going to think, you're just a crackpot creationist. You're out on the fringe. And that's not true. I did this test, this question at the fair. How did people get here? Blind chance or a creator? And 17 people said by blind chance. Okay, and 139 said by a creator. And that's pretty close to what the Gallup poll said. They did this in 2019. And that top line, that's a percentage of Americans that believe God created man in his present form less than 10,000 years ago. That's 40%. That's the majority of Americans. And then the middle line is humans evolved over millions of years with God's help. That's 33%. So the vast majority, 73%, believe in God making man. And then that bottom one, humans evolved over millions of years without God. That's 22%. So what's happening? The minority is taking the majority's tax money to teach the minority view because arbitrarily they just define God out of science, which is contrary to history because the people who brought us science were creationists. People like Newton and Pascal and Faraday and Lister, it just goes on and on and on, and Babbage. Okay, so what do? We need to get educated, and I think one step there, go into our YouTube channel, Solidify Your Faith, and that Creation Series 101 is a real good starting place. It'll show you both perspectives. It'll show you which perspective breaks laws of physics and laws of logic. And then CS 102 shows you where you can find good websites that give entertaining videos that get you up to speed on radiometric dating and fossils and carbon dating and the starlight. And then also, tomorrow night, I'm going to be on Kent Hovind, and that's going to be fun. So yeah, hopefully we can get the spotlight shined in our school district here in St. Cloud and Sartell and Sauk Rapids, because these lies are everywhere. And hopefully this will happen around the country. And because that's where a lot of our kids are getting lied to and they believe the lie. Plus we got the creation tour at Tacoma Zoo coming up on the 20th. And then we've also got that speaker on the 20th if you want to hear about the DART predictions. Okay, and so with that, I thank you for your attention.